It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Daniel Cole, a 38-year-old tech millionaire, realized the worst thing a father could imagine. His 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, was gone. One moment she was holding his hand as they left the library, humming the little song she loved. The next, her small fingers had slipped away in the crowd, swallowed by the sea of umbrellas and hurried footsteps on the wet pavement. Daniel's heart pounded as panic surged through his veins. He shouted her name, shoving past strangers, scanning every face. It didn't matter that he was one of the wealthiest men in the city, money couldn't buy him what he needed at that moment. It couldn't give him his daughter back. Then, he saw her. A woman stood at the corner of the street, cradling Sophie protectively in her arms. Her clothes were worn, her coat frayed at the sleeves, and a small tear ran down her cheek. She whispered something to the little girl, words Daniel couldn't hear through the rain. But Sophie clung to her like she was someone safe, someone known. Daniel ran toward them, breathless. "That's my daughter," he shouted, almost tripping over the curb. The woman turned her head slowly, her eyes deep pools of something he couldn't quite read, pain, maybe, or longing. And then she whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. "She looks exactly like the baby I lost." The past they didn't know they shared. Daniel froze, the noise of the city fading into a dull roar in his ears. Sophie looked up at him with tear-streaked cheeks, still clinging to the woman's neck. The stranger introduced herself as Elena, her voice trembling. She explained she had found Sophie wandering near the bus stop, crying. She stayed with her because the little girl reminded her so much of her own daughter, gone 3 years ago in a tragic car accident. Daniel didn't know why, but something about Elena felt familiar. There was a depth in her eyes that mirrored his own, a loneliness born from losing the most important person in your life. The millionaire who couldn't fix himself. Daniel was a man who had everything, except peace. His wife, Sophie's mother, had passed away from cancer when Sophie was just 2 years old. Since then, Daniel buried himself in work, building his empire, telling himself it was for Sophie's future. But the truth, it was easier to focus on numbers and deals than on the emptiness inside. He thought money could shield Sophie from pain. But seeing her in Elena's arms, smiling through tears, he realized something. Sophie didn't need another mansion, another expensive toy. She needed warmth. She needed people. She needed connection, an unlikely friendship. Daniel insisted on giving Elena a ride home, but her home turned out to be a tiny, rundown apartment in the poorer part of town. A single room with peeling wallpaper, a small bed, and a shelf of worn children's books she still kept, even though her daughter was gone. Something in Daniel's chest twisted when he saw Sophie immediately curl up on Elena's couch, flipping through those old storybooks. In the weeks that followed, Sophie kept asking about Miss Elena. She wanted to visit her again. And against his own guarded instincts, Daniel began inviting Elena over for dinner, to the park, to Sophie's school plays. The three of them, broken in different ways, slowly began to fit together like pieces of a puzzle neither knew they were missing. One evening, after Sophie had gone to bed, Daniel found himself sitting with Elena on the porch, watching the city lights. She told him about the night she lost her daughter, the guilt she carried, the nights she'd screamed into her pillow, the mornings she didn't want to wake up. Daniel listened, not as a man who could fix her problems, but as someone who understood what it meant to feel shattered. He shared his own story, the day he realized his success meant nothing if he had no one to share it with. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt lighter. The day everything almost fell apart. It was Sophie's 7th birthday. She had insisted Elena be there. But hours before the party, a heavy storm hit, and Elena didn't show up. Daniel called. No answer. Something told him to drive to her apartment. He found her there, sitting on the floor in darkness, tears streaming down her face. She had received a box in the mail, her late daughter's belongings from storage. The grief had hit her like a freight train. Daniel knelt beside her. "You're not alone anymore," he said quietly. "We're not letting you go." That night, Elena came home with him. The ending that was really a beginning. Months later, Elena officially became part of their family, not through marriage at first, but through something deeper. She was Sophie's second mom, Daniel's closest friend, and slowly, something more. Daniel had always believed life gave you one great love, one chance at happiness. But meeting Elena taught him something he would never forget. Sometimes, the people you lose make space for the people you're meant to. It doesn't matter how much you've lost, how many nights you've cried yourself to sleep, or how far you think you've fallen, life still has a way of sending you people who will help you stand again. Sometimes they're strangers. Sometimes they become